welcome back. Well, not far away from what we were discussing, some of the realities of 2023 as the year draws to a close. Now we put our eyes on the manufacturing sector, and we know that one major setback for that sector this year, 2023, has been the FX shortage, and of course the drop in the value of the naira, which Mr. Irani also referred to. So to give us a first-hand experience, we have with us the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Coleman, Wise and Cables, Mr. George Onafowokan. Good morning and compliments, sir.
Good morning. Compliments to you too.
Yes, I know. In between this year, I came to your factory, had a report, and we talked about the issue of FX. And the interesting thing about is you also did say there were some positives this year. So maybe we should start from the positives, because I think you talked about the fact that there's been kind of infrastructural development that has encouraged new businesses, even along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. So let's not all be gloomy and let's...
There were some positives, and let's not allude ourselves to it. The roads, the infrastructure, if you look at the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway today, the number of businesses, I chair Ogun State Manufacturers Association, and if you look at the numbers that we have seen increasing even in subscriptions on the Ogun axis, it's been massive. Now, the optimism was there, and unfortunately, the optimism is diminishing a bit. I'm a bit of an optimist, and as you say, we've met quite a few times and talked. I believe that the opportunities in Nigeria are immense, but sometimes we have to also balance opportunities with the ability to create businesses and reduce risk associated with businesses. For manufacturing sector this year, I think we had an all-eye optimism of what was expected from moving from one government to the other. It's been dampened, unfortunately. It's the reality of today that we have to talk about, that we've been able to move from optimism of what we expect to happen. We all knew that, okay, you're going to take out subsidies, you're going to we expected the unification or convergence of the FX-related positions, but not at where we are. The reality is everybody's argument was Naira would stay between the 750 and the 850 mark. Today, where are we? We went to an all-eye of 1,310. We had an impact of some of the in this case, some of the funds that were actually backlogged that was paid down, and that saw us moving back to 1,000. Then we devalued again back to 1,250, and now we're at about 1,002. Now there is a likelihood we would move back or appreciate the naira in a bit, but consequences, and the key consequences of what do we do when we try to create palliatives. I'm a big believer is palliatives should be towards productivity, not consumption. Because the consumption palliatives create other effects that are counterproductive. Take, for instance, the palliative started off with people giving food, rice, bags of rice, yam. What is the impact of that? If I take 100 billion naira and I pour it into buying food, that's government money, taxpayers' money going into food. But what does it do? It impacts inflation, because you are now taking money that really has not been worked for to buy food that you're going to give away. The impact element is that you get an higher inflationary rate on the real factor of food because you bought food. Because me and you are working for every penny. Now, but the 100 billion that bought food has just increased the price of food. Whatever is left is what me and you are buying. So impacts raw materials. Now, fiscal policy and our fiscal policy and monetary policy needs to still be balanced. We need a better balance. They're trying their best, but I think we need a balance. Now, one misguided one, which I think is well misguided, is taking the exchange rate of customs, because I'm a manufacturer. And I think everybody that is looking at local production is importing some aspect of it. Whether you import machinery, you import raw materials, you're importing. Now, if I now go from taking the exchange rate to the dollar of calculating duty from 751, move it to 783. Nigerians are very resilient. We all kept quiet. But you now take it from 783 and jump it up 21% to 951. For someone like me, I had an instant impact of a raw material that came in a week after that decision that moved the cost of duty by 165 million naira just by doing that. Now, if you do that, what do? I increase my price. What happens to us? Inflation again. We want to manage inflation, but we're not actually balancing. So the palliatives should be at productivity.
Yeah, you know, when I saw the customs rates, in my mind, there was like, I thought the president said there'll be a convergence of the rates. So how come we still have customs rates? We have FX, we have, what's the other one? You know, if we're still dealing with the parallel markets,
correct,
you know, which the government does not recognize, but is the most available, you know, so we can say, okay, it's a spillover from, you know, because demand cannot be met. But how come even in the official window with the government, we still have multiple rates? How do we solve this problem?
I think,
isn't it possible to make one rate?
It is possible, but I think the first thing they need to do is there's a backlog. You have $7 billion backlog, of which I think by now they've cleared out about 1.5 to about less than 2 billion. Now, you still have an average of almost $5 billion, of which people like us have paid the government for, bought forward, never got the money. Some of us are still waiting more than a year for the money, and we've paid them. Now, invariably, what has happened is that I am a manufacturer or any other manufacturer that bought into that $5 billion and was supposed to pay raw material or its supply or its machinery. You never gave them the money. Now, do we continue to default? No. So what everybody has done is found another $5 billion and paid it. Now, what happens is that if you pay back that $5 billion or $6 billion, invariably the naira will find its real level. Because what you've just done is giving back people money they've really paid for twice. But now, if they actually pay it, you give them credit. I would not need $5 billion again for me. The money I paid you in advance, indirectly, I don't need them to buy the dollar now. We'll find now the real value of money. The real value of the naira, we all are still in agreement that it should be around 800, 850.
So we have 750 in the budget.
Now, we have 750 in the budget.
The reality, the budget the other day, how real that is.
You know, the reality of the budget is then done to manage liquidity. If I give you 850 to the dollar to the budget, I'll give you more money. If I give you more money, I'll impact inflation. If I impact inflation, cost of funds become higher. We're back to the same problem. So what they do sometimes with the budget is to try and minimize the impact of liquidity. So that's the reality. So setting the budget at 750 is to manage the liquidity of what I give you. Because if I say 850 and Nigeria ends $1 billion,
I have to give you more.
I'll have to give you more. Then you go into more spending spree. And we need to be a bit more prudent. The reality is things are tough. The manufacturers are impacted. We're getting closures that we cannot actually afford. Now, how do we sustain these manufacturers? We need the government to actually play the right part. We need certain ministers, the Minister of Industry, to do far more job than she's doing now. Let's be realistic. We have to tell people who are doing their job, who are doing it right or what not. If you have a Minister of Industry that is not fighting government for the industry, we have a problem. It's not a trade and investment role. It's industry first before trade and investment. She needs to know that everything she does that creates jobs is 60 to 70% industry. So if I'm not today writing for IDEC, which is the import duty exemption, and the minister involved in industry has not signed one since she got on seat, we have a problem.
Have you been having meetings with her?
I think she's finally realized what she needs to do. I think we were called in, President was called in for about a meeting about a week or two ago. Finally, I think we need to get the government to actually see that industry stabilizes their country. The country stabilizes employment, stabilizes growth. Because if we don't process even agriculture, you still go back to industry. If you go into agriculture and we produce everything, we don't process it, we're back to the same thing, where they get so bad in what we scrap is more than what we actually sell.
And once we just keep depending on imports, we keep fighting for ethics.
We need to backward integrate a lot of things. But you see, the critical part for Nigeria is we need to do what we're supposed to do tomorrow, today. We spend too much time in bureaucracy. Let's be realistic. To invest in Nigeria is tough. I'll give you an example. Recently, and we talk too much about FDIs, which is foreign direct investment. We talk less about domestic direct investment, which is localized drive. Recently, I actually organized a CEO's meeting in Ogun State with the state government. And they were shocked at a sitting. Less than 20 people offered $600 million worth of investment on the table now, not tomorrow, based on expanding their current businesses. We focus less on our own investments within the country, on those that have even put the money in, and we don't think of how do we drive them to actually increase their capacity, rather than how do we create foreign direct investment that, like portfolio investors, who only come for money management, money market, get out immediately, there's a trouble. Now, the question again is that how do we encourage investment? If you're a pioneer investor in Nigeria, in manufacturing, in any product that is not made in Nigeria, you're almost dead in the first 2 years. Why? Because unfortunately, and I'm a participant, we've done almost about 5 different products over the last 10 years that are pioneer products. And I'll give you what really happens. Recently, we did fiber optics. A year ago, we opened it. A year plus after, I'm still in the bureaucracy of moving the product away from raw materials, as in finished product. So $30 million investment, I sat there for 1 year while we're playing bureaucracy of how do we encourage more investment. So pioneer products in Nigeria means if you're not a foreign investor, that the government has pre-done everything for you. If you're a local investor, that you've just expanded your business into something that will replace importation, what happens is that they go into a tailspin of bureaucracy of having to check first whether you are true or not, even though they came for the opening. Then we start the whole scenario of bureaucracy.
So what do you say we tell President Bola Tinubu, we appreciate your efforts going out there to try to woo investors, but can you please look inwards? Because we're actually talking about changing our taste buds in Nigeria from imported goods to the local ones.
The reality is that they need to drive. I think there must be a focus. Maybe they need to take out industry out of all the ministry and stand it on its own. We've done that before, because I think there's a lack of focus.
But did it make a difference?
It did, in a way, because the job of that minister has nothing else to do than grow industry. So you want to create employment, but you don't want to stick to what creates the employment. So the industry sector, whether you want to localize local content, is like saying to Nigerians, and this is a very terrible thing to put down in place, you cannot tell me to pay you taxes with my money and don't want to spend it in Nigeria. We cannot be in any part of governance between the federal, the state, the local government, the House of Rep, and buy foreign cars when they're made in Nigerian cars with the taxes paid in Nigeria. Naira is naira. If it's made in Nigeria, the naira should be good enough. It shouldn't be buying dollars to import. We need to change our mentality. Manufacturing should be priority to local content, and local content will drive growth. And if we focus and believe in our own, the same way we used to have presidents driving 504s, let them drive made in Nigerian cars.
Wow, I think that's a beautiful place to end it. And the message, I just think I have goose pimples on my butt. I love Nigeria. I wish things would work, honestly, because we have all it takes. We just need to be intentional and less selfish and greedy.
I agree.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Onafowokan, for sharing those experiences with us, and do enjoy the rest of the holiday.
You too. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's take a quick time out. We'll be back with the markets.